What's to be managed is relatively simple, but as it gets bigger, you need professionals. So companies form so-called board of directors, and the board hires management, which is charged technically with following the best interest of shareholders. That's all good, but especially in the age of a lot of small investors, you and I do not have either expertise or time or resources to go after these guys. I have a day job and I love my day job. I am a NVIDIA shareholder. I mean, I happen to be happy with the firm. It's tanking because of Trump these days. But even if I wasn't happy, the only thing I can do is sell my stock. I don't have the time to or resources to go over every single detail of their daily operations. So I need to hire agents. Okay. This is the generic principal and agent problem. As the owner, I am the principal. I hire an agent to do my bidding. But if I do not have either information or means to regulate their actions, there is nothing that stops these guys to follow their own interests, depending upon their incentives. Give you an example. Until 2006, New York Stock Exchange was kind of a close partnership. The members had seats and they were partners. In 2006, they became a public corporation. They did an IPO, sold some of the stock to the public, and they hired a CEO. This guy was in charge of something in SEC sometime. I don't remember the name now. He comes in early 2007. And in 2008, when the overall market crashed, of course, that affected New York Stock Exchange as well. You know, if people are not trading, you're not going to make much money, right? And when they fired him, do you know what they found in his office? He spent a lot of money in his office. He had a goddamn pure gold toilet in his bathroom. Pure gold. What is the benefit of that to any shareholder? You know, if I'm a client of New York Stock Exchange and I visit the CEO, for some reason I have to drop deuce, I go there. Oh, it's a gold closet. What is it going to do to me? Nothing. It is basically, power show. Sometimes these guys buy big corporate jets. Sometimes that's necessary for business. Sometimes they do it for own, pleasure. Or they buy other corporations because they want to build an empire, not necessarily because that would add value to the firm. For example, tomorrow, if NVIDIA wants to buy AMD, I'm sure they can. But personally, I don't think buying AMD would add value to NVIDIA. But if that's one guy, I think, if he wants to increase his empire, he may want to do that. Why do you think Elon Musk, whatever you think of him, bought Twitter? Even the most generous estimate of value of Twitter before he bought it was maybe $20 billion. He paid $45 billion for that company. It's his own money. I don't care. That's not the issue. But he didn't buy Twitter because he thought he put up Tesla shares as collaterals. He thought this would add value to Tesla or to himself. He bought it because he wanted to increase his political clout. as you have seen, it worked for him. Whether or not you agree it worked for the country, that's your business. We probably disagree on that. But remember, he's not the majority shareholder of Tesla. By controlling only a small shares of Tesla, he is affecting the fate of Tesla. Do you know what happened to Tesla shares over the last few days? Come on, mouse. Well, it went up today a little bit, but let's just look at the last 5 days. 5 days ago, it was trading at $280. It's now trading at 230. That's almost 20% decline. So Tesla shareholders lost 20% of their value. Why? Because of his political involvement. Whether you agree or not, uh, what Trump is doing in tariffs is right. That's besides the point as far as a shareholder. If Elon Musk was not involved in there, Tesla shares still would have went down because the overall market went down, but it would not have gone down 20%. So this guy is essentially using his own egoistic interest in front of the shareholders because he's the CEO. He's not necessarily acting in the best interest of the shareholders. Now, historically, there are minimum two ways you can handle these. One is to give incentives to management so that their compensation is linked to the success of the company. One of these things are executive stock options. In fact, that's where Elon Musk made most of his wealth. I mean, he made a lot of money with PayPal, then he invested into Tesla early on. He's not one of the founders, but they also picked him as CEO. Back in 2012, they gave him stock options that were exercisable at $12. Before the split, he had to convert them into regular stock when it was $1,000. So he paid $12 for shares, got shares that were worth $1,000. That's why he's worth that much money. And another one is if you don't give that sort of stuff to increase the threat of a takeover. Suppose, and this was rather common in 70s and 80s. Suppose I am so-called an activist investor, and I see that a management team somehow captured the board. Okay, the board cannot fire them easily. I'm going to go ahead and try to take over the company, either buy the shares from the market or make a hostile takeover offer. As soon as I take over the company, I'm going to fire the management, put my own people. Since I believe they were managing it poorly, I'll make money. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, but that's a mechanism. But there are election mechanisms that determine the board. Every company has an annual meeting, and during those annual meetings, any open board seats, just like Senate seats, House seats, are up for an election. But unlike a regular election, you are one person, you get one vote. That is not the case for shareholders, unless there are differentials in different share types. One share is equal to one vote. If you own 100 shares, you have 100 votes. If you own million shares, you have a million votes. Unless there are differential stock classes. The most famous one that you could relate to these days are Google and Facebook. For example, Meta, of course, these days has founder shares that belong to the Zuck that has 10 times more votes than a regular share, but the same right to the cash flow. Let's assume Mark Zuckerberg owns only 10% of Facebook shares. So let's assume there are 100 shares. So if Zuck owns 10 shares and public owns